Hello, everyone. I'm Jan Mercer-Toms, the Vice President of U.S. Development with Join Mayshad. We are an ecosystem of brands for women by women, connecting women to each other and to the brands, organizations, and causes that champion equity for women professionally and personally. Today, you're with us watching Speak Your Mind with Dr. Risa Ryger, brought to you each and every Monday afternoon. Please make sure to check us out at Join Mayshad and become a member. And together we will revolutionize how professional women connect, network, and do business together. And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And while you do that, why not hit the bell to receive notifications of all of our content? Risa, welcome. So happy and thrilled to be with you today on this very important show. Today's theme is studying yourself before the election. But before we get to that, would love to learn about how your week is going. Hi, Risa.
Hi, Jen. Good morning. Good morning. And it's going to be good afternoon, everyone. And we're thrilled that you're here with us today. And we do have a very, very special show for you with our very special guest, who we'll talk about in a little bit.
Risa, so we like to kick off your show each and every week with a theme, a thought, an experience that has made you stop and think, And sometimes it brings you incredible joy. Sometimes it brings you a whole new experience, but you never, ever cease to amaze me in the sense of what you have to share with us. I'm at the edge of my seat right now, waiting to learn what's Risa's story going to be for this week.
Actually, Jen, I've thought about this a lot. And this is what I'd like to share, particularly at this time. We're all on different roads in many respects, and we've had to shift gears. We've had to rethink. We've had to remove ourselves and move in different kinds of ways. And so I was thinking a lot about, what road we have been on and what road I have been on. And the importance sometimes of taking a detour, of being able to assess the road that you're on, and the fact that maybe that road doesn't work for you and you need to get off the road. And so I was thinking about my mother, may she rest in peace. And my mother was living with her sister. She was in Rhode Island, and she was engaged to someone. And she's just this very intuitive, interesting person. And so she started feeling that maybe this wasn't exactly right. She didn't have anything specific, but it wasn't feeling exactly right for her. And so she decided to go visit a girlfriend in New York and just kind of take a moment away. And so while she was doing that, she was in Manhattan, and she was walking down the street on the Lower East Side on the corner of Allen Street, and she passed by this guy, and she backs up, and they look at each other, and it turns out that man turned out to be, my father. So that one of our family sayings is that you never know, but also, sometimes for all of us, there are times that we're on the road and we feel that the road just isn't working for us, and we don't know where else to go. And sometimes you don't need to know where else to go, but you need to go elsewhere. You need to take that detour. You need to get off that road and find a different path and check it out. And even if you don't have 100% certainty with it, that maybe that's not what's needed. And so to have some faith in yourself, to trust what's going on in yourself, and to be able to maybe not see exactly where you're going, but know that you need to step off from where you are. And that sometimes you never know who may be on the corner for you, or what opportunity, relationship, experience might be on that corner waiting for you.
Risa, that story warms my heart. And I love the fact that your mother was so intuitive at being able to listen to what that inner voice was telling her, And then to also seize the moment and capture the opportunity and know, right, and have an inkling, a sense that this was the person that she ran into on the street was going to be, the person. And Risa, we have you here with us today as a standing testament to the power of intuition and knowing yourself and trusting yourself, which is a great segue to the theme of today's conversation: studying yourself before the election.
Very true, and very much as we're here on this road, and in many respects, although we have divisions and we have differences of views, that we're also on this road together at the same time. And it's not an easy road to be on. It's a lot of uncertainty. So Jan, where are your thoughts at the moment?
Well, I think it's interesting, Risa, because, we've been doing a lot of reflecting, of course, at Mayshad, in the sense of, making sure that we've been really responsive to just taking time out to listen to, to women in our ecosystem, to understand exactly, to your point, Risa, what everyone's going through now. We are on all kind of different roads, but yet a lot of very similar themes. Like, we're all going through the pandemic together. We've all been faced with, questioning, what does it mean to us, to our families, to women, because, women are bearing the brunt of many of the newly added responsibilities, in the sense of just, having to figure out how to navigate the world around us. And also we have an election year as well. And Risa, I have a couple of questions I would love to pose to you before we bring on our very special guest.
Go, Jan. I have to tell you that your questions, I take a breath, and then I can get myself ready for a Jan question. So come on in.
So at Mayshad, we've been talking a lot about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness during this moment in time. And would love to get your thoughts on, when I say those three phrases to you, words and phrases to you, what comes to mind for you, given where we're at? And, by the time that this show airs, we're airing this show a week before the election. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how we all come through this, given the fact that the world is really complex right now. But when I say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, what to you comes to mind right now, Risa?
Gosh, these are the idealists who started our country. Really just had such lofty commitments to what was supposed to happen here: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that people are entitled to live and to stay alive. And this certainly resonates in what we're experiencing at this point in time. Liberty is freedom and being able to live free. And what does that look like? And the pursuit of happiness, and that it's gone from something vast and national to really a very individual and individualized level. So the pursuit of happiness is your pursuit. And what does your pursuit look like? And to have the opportunity now and always to really rethink, to think, to reflect, to assess what's going on and take that into account in terms of what's important for you. So we have all different kinds of mandates here. We have a national mandate, we have a smaller, more regional mandate, and we also have an individual mandate. And the truth of the matter is that we try to be, or aspire to be, both truthful to ourselves, members of our community, and members of a nation where the goal and the challenge is, how do we take people, because our pride in many respects is we are a quilt. We're a quilt of many fabrics. We're not that quilt that's like that one sheet. Remember when you were in college, like you took you bought two flat sheets and you sewed them together and that became your duvet cover. We're not that. We're not whole cloth. that we bring our individualities, our ideas, our backgrounds, our heritages, and that through that we're able to create something more and different and with more impact. And so we've got a huge mandate in front of us right now, and that polarization isn't new. We haven't invented polarization at this point. And so we look in many places to see what that can look like, and how do we go from polarized to coming together. So I loved your first question, Jen. What do you have next?
Risa, just you wait. No, but I think, honestly, I think also, in listening to your response, which was beautifully articulated, Risa, thank you for that. I think it also, has brought to light a lot of opportunity if we were to think about how to do this all differently, right? Because one of the things that the pandemic has really brought to highlight is the fact that the world, the country, the United States, that we still have a lot of inequalities here, from a race, from a class, from a gender perspective, from a sexuality perspective. And I think that, one of the opportunities right now is to really think through what wasn't working in the past, and to think through the fact that we're not going back to normal, nor maybe we probably shouldn't go back to normal, right? For a lot of different reasons. And so when I hear life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, I think of this ideal of meritocracy, and how so many of us in this country still really feel like we do have a meritocracy. And it'd be wonderful to really know that to be true, but we know that it's not. But how do we use what's happening right now in our country as a way to innovate and create and be on the forefront of change that really does bring more equality and justice to our country and to the world, honestly?
Well, growth is a place of discomfort. And, people that I work with, sometimes they come in and they think that, well, if you're working and you're growing, this is in my private practice, that, well, then I should feel better. I should feel better immediately. And that's just not how it is. I mean, there are times of obviously that we feel better. We have breakthroughs. We have great ideas. It's like the pieces that have been in motion somehow come together and settle together with work. But that growth is discomfort, because growth is about change. And we can welcome change. We can want to change. We can commit to change, which is all terrific. However, it doesn't mean that every moment on the path and through the process of change, that's a moment of comfort. It's discomfort. It's welcome discomfort. It's discomfort in the service of growth. And so it's not necessarily an easy time, a comfortable time, or a particularly happy time, although, of course, we look for happy moments and get them and take them and create them whenever we can. Nothing wrong with that. But that there's an embracing of what growth looks like and what the process of growth is like.
Risa, we're now very soon to the election, and we know that there'll be an aftermath from that as well. And yet, when we talk to women and men in our ecosystem, we realize that there's an incredible amount of stress and anxiety that we're feeling each and every day, and it feels like it's compounding each and every day, right, as we get closer to November 3rd. From your perspective, share with us some tips that we can incorporate into our lives to help us stay a little bit more stable and have more mental clarity and feel like there's a bit of optimism at the end of the tunnel.
Optimism is essential. And at some point, optimism comes from the inside. That's where true optimism comes from. We can be consoled, we can be inspired, we can take in information and utilize that to help ourselves. But Optimism is about going in and finding that space in yourself that says, I'm going to be okay. It's going to be okay, even if I don't know how that's going to happen. And that's really crucial. So what to do, how to navigate this. Stay in touch with your friends. Stay in touch with people who are you feel connection with. And the people who, particularly now, the people who bring you down, the people who are just full of negative energy, the people that seem to bring you to your lowest point rather than help you connect with what you can do in reality. That may be a time to take a little bit of pause, from that. And I'm not talking about just go to people who, everything's great. How are you? Oh, just great. I mean, excuse me, how are things? Wonderful. I mean, really, really, where are you living? I mean, but the thing is that we can be fine and we can be moving forward in our lives and we can have very positive things happen in our lives. And simultaneously, we also have an understanding that over 200,000 people have died, that we're in an uptick of COVID now, that we don't have the answers that we so wished we had, that our children are not back in school as they've known it, and that we're still zigging and zagging. And so find the places to steady yourself. Find the places where you can find comfort while you're also going through these difficulties. Take care of, and I'm going to say this really clearly, we have physical health, and not disconnected from that is our mental health. Mental health is really crucial. Note your stress levels. Note if you're eating more, less, sleeping more, less, using alcohol more than you normally would, going into substances that you feel you just need to have in your life. Really take stock of where you are emotionally and pay attention to that. Take care of yourself, take care of your body, take care of everything that you can take care of in the ways that you can and in the ways that are sustainable.
Thank you, Risa. I love what you said in your response around, getting really uncomfortable with feeling hopeful and finding optimism in the gray area, right? Because we're all living kind of in the gray area. And it's, for those of us who need to have all the answers all the time or feel like we need to be in control, it's a challenging moment.
You mean like women, women who are, these can do, high impact, high energy, make it happen, because that's what we've experienced. That's the model that we hold ourselves to. Those are parts of who we are that we really connect with and give such value to, that there are times when it may not be possible. It may not happen in the ways that we are used to them happening. But, and this is my important but we don't have to then internalize it in a way and make ourselves less than, hold some sort of ideal, something that doesn't exist. If I was more than, if I was better than, if I could, would, should, then I would be able to, and then fill in the blank. So what I'm asking people to do, as they're watching this show, and an action point besides voting, make sure you vote, is create a different sentence for yourself with a different fill in the blank. And rather than if I was, put it into a different way and say, I am, I can, and I will, and then fill in the blank of what you can do right now with who you are, what you got, you've got, and you are more than you can even give yourself credit for.
Thank you, Risa. That's beautiful. I love the positivity that just oozes from that exercise. I think this is the perfect time to bring in our very special guest for the day, Sam Cherribi. Hi, Sam. Welcome.
Hi. What an inspiring morning to be with you and Risa.
Sam Cherribi is a senior lecturer at Emery University and the director of the Emery Development Initiative. Sam, as a Dutch Moroccan sociologist, you've had, as Risa said, an incredible career trajectory and building bridges and inspiring cross-cultural collaborations. When we say to you the words and phrase, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, given your global expertise and experience, what does that mean to you in the context of American culture?
Wow, it's a beautiful question, actually.
That's what that
It makes me reflect. Honestly, you think about a geographic place, you think about the United States of America when you are somewhere else. It lets me think about what, when you talk about geometry, you talk about this place, this central place, where from it you can measure everything. And in fact, it is a model of society. And the United States gave actually an application, a practical application to a European philosophy of Locke that has been translated by Jefferson. But at the same time, it brings me back to Amsterdam, where I studied, which is, you are now in New Amsterdam. I studied in Amsterdam, and I think about the 17th century, where I was in this Institute of Sociology, which is actually the Dutch East Indian Company that discovered New York, New Amsterdam, that sent Mr. Hudson to the Hudson River, gave name. And here I think immediately about the French philosopher Descartes, who had to flee Catholic France to come to the Netherlands. And then I have to think about Spinoza, the Jewish philosopher, the greatest philosopher ever, actually who theorized actually for liberty and freedom that we have. And even he was the one that gave a lot of things to the world. And then I see that beautiful application that came from the old world to the new world. And then, a beautiful philosophy that, there is a guy called Russell Shorter. He's a New York, writer who wrote a book called An Island in the Middle of the Sea about Manhattan. And why is Manhattan has this is amazing stew of culture, of liberty, of freedom, of people mingling, etc., than the rest of the world. And he thinks because it had to do this, it goes back to this roots of European philosophy that could only flower in New York, actually, and the rest of America. However, I think immediately about what you said to Risa at the beginning. You said something about, you think about meritocracy, but I think now, because we are living in a difficult time, in a time of polarization and problems, this dream or this foundation of the American dream, which is this maxim, has to be more inclusive to African Americans, to other people that are striking. And I think America has the power to do that. We are an amazing society. And if we are polarized, it's because we are able to absorb also this polarization in the future. And I'm absolutely believing in this. This American dream is still well and alive and will be able to be this huge engine of freedom around the world. Because honestly, if you kill that dream, you will kill, the freedom in the world in a different way, because it is so inspiring to the rest of the world. And we need America to be that inspiration of the world. And that's why we have to start with America itself to be also more inclusive. And if I may say, I spoke in the beginning about this center, this place which is where you can measure everything. We can go back to the state. The state is also this place. So the state has two hands, a right hand and a left hand. The right hand is the market, the blue market, the pursuit of happiness. But the left hand has to be also, helping the poor, helping the people who cannot reach that dream, to enable them to go to that dream. That's why I've been thinking about creating about the welfare. We shouldn't turn welfare into only workfare and then prison fare for African Americans. Mm-hmm. Has to be something more inclusive, and America is able to do it. It's the most interesting, the most vibrant society we have in the face of the earth now for the time being. If we can't get this freedom here, we will not get it anywhere else. Please stay this beacon of freedom and this inspiring maxim for the world, which is liberty and the pursuit of happiness, if I may say that.
Sam, would you be able to please share any, experience or challenge that you've had about bringing polarized or helping to bring polarized entities, whatever it may be, and how you navigated that?
Yeah. Well, when I was member of parliament in the Netherlands, it was that time where we had problems in the Balkan region. We just had this terrible, massacre, mass annihilation of Muslims in Srebrenica, in former Yugoslavia. So Dutch parliamentarians and some European parliamentarians were instrumental in bringing Muslims and Serbs together. It was a tough thing to do. We did that with Rwanda. Because I was on the standing committee of something like that, and then to bring the Tutsis and Hutus together was not an easy thing to do. And I really think about the a number of practical programs that even that Europeans were doing to help. So just go back to maybe some other practical examples from the Dutch society. As you know, Dutch society is very, if you could say, multicultural. There are, just like New York, and you have a lot of refugees, and you have problems with what we had. We had 9/11. We had also some, the killing of Van Gogh, the killing of some iconic figures in somewhere in Europe, and still, we succeeded to bring rabbis, imams together and show them also, for example, the suffering of the Jews in the Netherlands, because there's a lot of anti-Semitism sometimes going on with some new communities. And we do say, no, let's bring you to Auschwitz and see what really happened to the Jews in that time. Something like that. And I must tell you that I saw one of the most rabid anti-Semites crying when he saw what happened in Auschwitz. And then I say, well, the European history is full of suffering, full of things, and really big lessons to the world. So after the mass annihilation of the Second World War, we said never again. And we created, this amazing thing which is called the Human Rights Declaration of Human, 1948, to help the world navigate, this, polarization problems in the world. And I say, there were so many atrocities before the Second World War, but now we see that the world didn't learn that much. We see other genocides. I just spoke about Rwanda. We see what happened, in Syria with Assad. What's going on in Yemen and other places, and that's why I think we should. It's what we have in America, with the problems we have in Europe and America, are really like cakewalks in comparison with what's going on in the rest of the world. We have to know that really people suffer, people die around the world, and we, as Europe and America, if we don't, create this big transatlantic bridge to create to keep the norms of civility, norms of human rights in higher standard. China is not going to do that. Iran is not going to do that. Africa is not going to do it. We need, this sleeping coalition between Europe and America, but also in order to include other countries and to enlarge the circles of identification with true norms of civility and to bring peace. And I think, honestly, we brought in the past, Serbs and Muslims who hated each other, they got each other. And then at the end, we saw friendship flourish. We brought Palestinians and Israelis together in some experiments. And it works. We see that, with this young Palestinian boy who was dying, and his dad offered the heart to an Israeli boy. It's who survived. I mean, these are amazing examples. And I think there are so many beautiful things around the world. We just prefer to take the lens of polarization, the negative lens to see the world. So if we turn the negative lens and think about prime and frame the things positively, we really can achieve this, go back to this beautiful American dream, but can be accessible for everybody, at least in a certain proportions of their the wealth of their country and things like that. So I might say that.
Sam, you make a really interesting point around the extent to which Americans of today experience suffering, and not to diminish the 220,000 people who have lost their lives, the millions of people who have suffered from COVID and maybe in varying stages of recovery, and the 59 million Americans that have found unemployment over the course of the last 7 months. But you're absolutely right in the sense of, we haven't as a country experienced suffering in the same way, even in modern history, that many other countries have. And so I'm wondering, as a part of that, then, is it also a reframing of what we hold near and dear to our heart? Because we are a very individualistic country. This country was founded on rights, right to own property, right to free speech. And those rights are very much about the individual and not necessarily about the community. So in some part, does how we move forward, do we need to take a look at the way in which civil societies can benefit from nonviolent communication and conflict resolution? And also, do we also need to check at the door our own unearned privileges? Because that's also, from my perspective, at least, a big part of what we're not really understanding now when we talk about the ideals of meritocracy, but understanding the ways in which you're privileged even before you enter into this world.
Yeah, I really thank you. I'm talking to you now from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm not really very far from the MLK Center, Martin Luther King Center, we are in the city of the dream and the dreamer. And there is nothing more inspiring than this dream of America. So America has everything. It has also the dream in Atlanta here. And recently we had the passing of John Lewis, who was an amazing senator, and he wants people to get in good trouble. And I really ask America to get in good trouble, to solve a lot of problems, indeed, we shouldn't underestimate what happened with the COVID, and our prayers is with all the people who died and things like that. And but this is a big dilemma for the whole world, and not only for America. I mean, I hope that we're going to get through it in the future. However, as I said, the idea of being inclusive is very, very important, and is in the heart of also the philosophy of MLK, but also the push, the Green Coalition movement, and also Black Lives Matters, because what Black Lives Matters, they don't say we are only for blacks. They say, no, our lives matter too. And it is a really interesting take. That's why I say we have to be inclusive to everybody, and give also importance at this time of COVID to the welfare state. We shouldn't forget that a lot of people cannot afford to pay, for their rent or their mortgages, have problems, something like that. And here, America should intervene. If the French can do it, if the Dutch can do it, the most powerful country in the world should be able to do it, and shouldn't whine and say, we should think only about individuals who can do it, and everybody should be able to do it on their own. No, at some moments of we need the welfare state. It is needed because that's how we organize solidarity in the country in moments of. So if there are no problems, okay, then we can keep shrink the welfare state. But in the times of COVID, we have to expand the welfare state. So it is not what the Republicans or the Democrats say, a small state over a big state. No, it depends on what society needs at that time. When in times of catastrophes, in time of big problems, we need that. And I just say in a different way, we have the dream and the dreamer. We have the will. We have the big dream of the pursuit of happiness. Let's put them together and create a more inclusive society, and help people who cannot. Because when you make the cake bigger, everybody can have a piece of the cake. But when you make it smaller, it's a problem. And America has the means and the capacity, the creative companies, creative individuals, creative ideas to make the cake much bigger for everybody.
When you're talking about welfare, and it's interesting because welfare has taken on this very negative kind of connotation in many respects. But when we take a look at what we're actually saying, welfare, that we're committed, interested, and caring about the welfare, about the well-being of other people, and that at all different times and in different ways, people need a helping hand.
Absolutely.
It's not about a handout. It's a helping hand. And that's really, a very different place. And as I'm here with you today, you have this remarkable steadiness, this steadiness. And I'm wondering, I know I'm going into a little bit of a different spot just for the moment, and then Jan will do her Jan thing. And so, in these situations that are so fraught with conflict, right, bringing these individuals together where you can palpably feel, hate, animosity, and that have perhaps gone on for centuries. How do you hold yourself steady? How do you internally? Because I think it would be helpful as we're experiencing this, and part of our personal mandate is keeping ourselves steady. How do you keep yourself steady in the presence and in the space of people who are in conflict?
Honestly, I told you at the beginning, I'm inspired by philosopher Spinoza. Baruch Spinoza gave me the best precept for life, which is don't love, don't criticize, try to understand. This is amazing thing to do and to apply in your daily life and also in situations. It gives me, it makes me so, I at least look at things differently and not immediately rush to judgment and etc. If ice cubes can work with President Trump and Vice President Biden, I think that's the most interesting thing. Because you never think that Ice Cube could do that, but he succeeded to do that. Because we all had different things about ice, and now that I think I have hope in a world when things like this can happen, that people, from the extreme parts of the political spectrum, can meet and can do something.
And Sam, how do we encourage that? Because here's a question for you. And this is such an interesting reflection. We had Mariah Mayer on the show, on one of our other shows a few weeks ago. And she's a primatologist, and so a scientist and a big advocate against global warming, climate change. But she was asked to host a TV show called Expedition Bigfoot by one of the cable channels, where she and a crew travel around the world looking for Bigfoot. They never find Bigfoot, but she was really amazed to identify so many of her fans who then came to her and said, I had been a climate change denier all of my life, or I didn't understand the effects of climate change for my own community. And you really have helped me, convince me to change my mind on how I think about, this, what I now consider to be a very important topic and, and what America grapples with. And I'm wondering if, and my takeaway from that was, we often tend to preach to the choir, right? We see that on social media. We see it in our social circles. We see it in our professional circles, where we tend to gravitate toward people and communities and groups that look like us, right? And we have those conversations. And yet there often aren't a lot of opportunities right now in 2020 to be able to have those conversations, Sam, exactly to your point around that would bring together different groups of opposing people for really meaningful, respectful conversation, right? And so I'm wondering, what would it take for us to get to that point where we could actually bring together, people who may have very different views from us to really try to understand their perspective and their struggles, and really truly what are their hopes, wants, and desires, to really think through then, okay, so how do we find that common ground? Because that's definitely not happening right here in our country right now.
Yeah. So one of my friends is a professor at Columbia University. His name Abram Deswan. He was my professor in Amsterdam before, and he really thought about two things, something called identification and de-identification. And he said that people in general tend to compartmentalize other people. These are African Americans, these are Muslims, they are, this and groups like that. And this compartmentalization of the groups creates something called de-identification, or disidentify with African Americans, with Muslims, with other groups, etc. And what we should do, and the problem is that in the long run, it can bring this if we increase the identification, will frame these people negatively and will increase a kind of hostility. In order to erase hostility, we have to enlarge the circles of identification. We should less compartmentalize and include people in general by saying, we can identify around special topics, climate change or something else. People who do not believe in climate change, we have to identify with them on a different, maybe food. They would love to talk about food and good food and organic food. You have always to frame it in a different way to increase the identification. If somebody is allergic for certain words, climate change, well, don't use climate change, use something else. Good food, something like that, or slow cooking. There are ways of increasing the identification with the world, which gonna increase actually harmony. And it doesn't mean that we all be total harmony. There will be always polarization. Polarization would be different, but at least it's not the polarization we have in Syria or in Yemen or something like that. Peaceful polarization, there is nothing wrong with that. All healthy societies knows a certain degree of polarization.
Sam, I would love to talk about the fact that you are a father, and you're a father to a brilliant young woman who I'm sure has very unique experiences on what she's experiencing. And, she's launching her career as well. Talk to us a bit about some of the conversations you've had with her, and what are some of our aha moments, and what's coming up for you as father and daughter.
Oh yeah, I mean, there are many ways of connecting. So we try to cook together, and then with cooking, it's really interesting. I mean, when we cook, we speak French all the time. So all the ingredients are in French, so we do the conversation. And then when she was little, I was coaching her with she was in a soccer team. I was coaching YMCA Ajax with the city called is the team of Amsterdam, who playing here in Atlanta. So we speak Dutch. So we speak Dutch, and then sometimes with other families. So it's a linguistic connection because I want to to make her feel that, speaking many languages is really very important. The linguistic capital is something that you can convert. If you're in France, you speak French. If you're in Holland, you speak that. If you go to Morocco, you speak Arabic. So this is for it was the hardest thing to do is making her speak different languages at the same time, and she succeeded to do that. I'm so happy that she speaks French, Arabic, and Dutch, and this is one. And the other thing we discuss other things like she's interested in the arts, and I learned a lot from her, for example, and and the fact that she's sometimes do things with you and Mayshad, and it makes me very, very happy that she's with a group of amazing women and female that help her to grow. And I think it makes me very, very happy to see her growing every day. Honestly.
Thank you, Sam. That was beautiful. And we love having her be a part of the Mayshad network as well. We've learned so much from her, honestly, as well. So congratulations on raising a very, very super well-grounded, beautiful daughter. And Risa, the same goes to you as well. You're a mother with two young women as well in your family. Yeah. Risa, I want to pose the same question back to you in the sense of, with your conversations with your daughters, what's coming up for you during 2020?
Oh gosh, I think that one of the sayings in our family is that you never know. There are two things. One is that you never know, and two is this belief that we always wind up where we need to be. And the thing is that we can all have opportunities, and sometimes if we're not open to them, we may not see them. We may see, other people have this opportunity or that opportunity, and we may not see what is in front of us or what we can do to help make it happen. And so the idea that, be open, bring some confidence, and be available, be available, because you never know. It could happen on a street corner.
You never know.
You never know.
In my last question today, I want to pose this to both of you because I would love to get your experts' opinions on this. One of my favorite sociologists is Erving Goffman, who wrote extensively about the presentation of self and how the world is literally your stage, and you have a front self and you have a back self. And at Mayshad, we talk a lot about using 2020 as a time of deep reflection and as a time of really becoming more authentic with ourselves and with others. And we're all, peering into our backgrounds and our living rooms in a way which, we haven't had that luxury or the opportunity to do before. And so it feels a bit more real and a bit more raw because, again, we're all, like we said at the beginning of this episode, we're all kind of at different stages of how we're dealing with what 2020 represents for each of us individually and with our families. We would love your perspective of, I can't help but come back to Goffman's work during the entire course of our conversation today, because it really speaks to the heart of the matter of becoming more honest with yourself in the sense of who you are, how you're showing up, and how you really want to relate to others and create that change in the world, right? And becoming less polarized by engaging in that process for yourself. So I'd love to get both of your thoughts on, either Goffman's work in particular, which I know, Sam, you could talk about, or just, how we think about, our presentations of self right now in the sense of how we're showing up and what does that mean for Risa to the overall theme of the conversation today, steadying yourself before election day.
Who do you want to go first? Sam,
I'll let you go first. You go first.
Like to go first, or you want to? It's to you. You're our guest.
Whatever you want. I mean, honestly, I love Goffman. Goffman is amazing, sociologist, and he was working in a way. He been quoted a lot by Pierre Bourdieu, with whom I also worked, and Bourdieu spoke about another idea called the habitus. And what is the habitus? Is like this amazing black box we have, which is composed of three things, which is the ethos of the people, the axis with it, which is actually your way of being in society with your body, and the ethos. These are three things that are very important, because what we do sometimes is not always rational, because sometimes you have part of us which is not rational. It's not always rational behavior. And when you know that black box, you can free yourself. If you don't know your habits, you don't know what it is. So because we have years of socialization, years of things that we have in this black box that have things that are in it, and then we don't know about it. So first know yourself. So, and in order to free yourself, and then you know better and that's your compass. That's your way to look at how to navigate actually this very complex world of politics and also of society.
Beautiful, Sam. Thank you. Risa.
Yes, Sam, I couldn't have had a better moment for a segue into what I wanted to say. So I thank you for that. So in terms of how we present ourselves, there's a process that I developed called Disruptive Self-Ownership. And it's really how we own ourselves, what we identify as part of who we are, what we've left behind, and what we have maybe abandoned about who we are for all sorts of reasons. And so with 2020, this is the time, this is the moment to take stock of yourself, to connect the pieces and parts of who you are, what you say you are, what you've left behind. Those may be exactly the parts of what you need at this moment. So to really have self-ownership and to connect with that, to know who you are, and to go forward with that so that you can navigate this with as much strength, ability, wisdom, and a perspective, as you say so beautifully, Sam, with a perspective of wanting to understand, coming at it with a curiosity, an intellectual curiosity and desire to understand. Doesn't mean that you agree, but it's a desire to understand. So I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sam, thank you so much for being our guest today. This is a very, very special episode. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was so inspiring to be with you, both of you. Thank you. It was really nice. Thank you.
Sam, thank you so much for being here, being our guest. You have crossed the gender line by being our first male guest today. And I couldn't have imagined having a more wonderful guest with so much insight, knowledge, and humanity to share all of that with us. So thank you so much. Now, 2 takeaways. I think that I am going to continue thinking about Spinoza, and that it's important that we try to lead with understanding, and that if we go to a place of understanding in ourselves and trying to understand more, that can help to steady ourselves and keep us in a state of steadiness through this time of increased angst and uncertainty. So that's 1, go to Spinoza. 2, identify your black box. Look to your habits, look to what you've left behind about yourself. And really, this is a time where you need all of you to ignite you, to power you, to steady you, to comfort you, and to really be available for how you may need to stand up, show up, and speak up. And so as we're at the end of this show, I want to ask that please do like and leave a comment underneath our YouTube. And we're thrilled to have you join us. You know, we're part of the sisterhood here. We're always here for you. And please remember, as always, come join us next time, because as always, we've saved a seat for you. To save a seat for you, please subscribe to Join Mayshad's YouTube channel. And don't forget to hit the bell to get all notifications of our great content.